During the Great Depression, President Franklin D. Roosevelt's New Deal established the Works Progress Administration, known as the WPA. Through its Federal Writers Project, unemployed writers were hired to document American history, folklore, and everyday life. In the 1930s, field workers interviewed more than 2,000 formerly enslaved men and women, preserving memories that were rapidly disappearing with the passing of slavery's final living generation. The Black Ancestry Network Group presents the WPA, F.A.T recording of Polly Ann Colbert, a WPA slave narrative from Oklahoma, Volume 13, pages 33 to 38, in Colbert County, Oklahoma, with genealogical cross-references for Chickasaw Freedwoman, Dawes Card Number 866, Roll Number 3597. The following AI recording preserves the wording and historical dialect found in the surviving WPA transcript of Polly Ann Colbert's testimony. Obvious typographical, punctuation, and transcription errors have been corrected for clarity. No attempt has been made to modernize Polly's account or change the substance of her testimony. The surviving narrative was prepared by the original WPA personnel and may reflect the interviewer's transcription and editorial practices. And now, the Bang Family Ancestral Tree recording, the slave narrative of Polly Ann Colbert.
I am now living on the 40-acre farm that the government give me, and it is just about 3 miles from my old home on Master Holmes Colbert's plantation, where I lived when I was a slave. Lordy me, times sure have changed since slavery times. Maybe I notice it more since I've been living here all the time. But there are farms round here that I've seen grown timber cleared off of twice during my lifetime. This land was first cleared up and worked by Negroes when they were slaves. After the war, nobody worked it, and it just naturally grew up again with all sorts of trees. Later, white folks cleared it up again and took grown trees off of it. And now they are still cultivating it. But it is most worn out now. Some of it won't even sprout peas. This same land used to grow corn without hardly any work, but it sure won't do it now. I reckon it was on account of the rich land that us Negroes that was owned by Indians didn't have to work so hard as they did in the old states. But I think that Indian masters were just naturally kinder anyway. Leastways mine was. My mother, Liza, was owned by the Colbert family, and my father, Tony, was owned by the Love family. When Master Holmes and Miss Betty Love were married, their fathers give my father and mother to them as a wedding gift. I was born at Tishomingo, and we moved to the farm on Red River soon after that, and I have been here ever since. I had a sister and a brother, but I ain't seen them since then. My mother died when I was really small, and about a year after that, my father died. Master Holmes told us children not to cry, that he and Miss Betsy would take good care of us. They did, too. They took us in the house with them and looked after us just as good as they could colored children. We slept in a little room close to them, and she always seen that we was covered up good before she went to bed. I guess she got a sight of satisfaction from taking care of us, 'cause she didn't have no babies to care for. Master Holmes and Miss Betsy was real young folks, but they was pretty well fixed. He owned about 100 acres of land that was cleared and ready for the plow, and a lot that was not in cultivation. He had the woods full of hogs and cows, and he owned 7 or 8 grown slaves and several children. I remember Uncle Shed, Uncle Lige, Aunt Cheney, Aunt Lizzie, and Aunt Susie just as well as if it was yesterday. Master Holmes and Miss Betsy was both half-breed Choctaw Indians. They had both been away to school somewhere in the States and was well educated. They had 2 children, but they died when they was little. Another little girl was born to 'em after the war, and she lived to be a grown woman. They sure was fine young folks and provided well for us. He always had a smokehouse full of meat, lard, sausage, dried beans, peas, corn, potatoes, turnips, and collards banked up for winter. He had plenty of milk and butter for all of us, too. Master Holmes allus say, a hungry man can't work, and he always saw to it that we had lots to eat. We cooked all sorts of Indian dishes, tomfuller, pashofa, hickory nut grot, tom Buddha, ash cakes, and pound cakes besides vegetables and meat dishes. Corn or cornmeal was used in all the Indian dishes. We made hominy out of the whole grains. Tomfuller was made from beaten corn and tasted sort of like hominy. We would take corn and beat it like in a wooden mortar with a wooden pestle. We would husk it by fanning it, and we would then put it on to cook in a big pot. While it was cooking, we'd pick out a lot of hickory nuts, tie 'em up in a cloth, and beat 'em a little and drop 'em in, and cook for a long time. We called this dish hickory nut grot. When we made pashofa, we beat the corn and cook it for a little while, and then we add fresh pork and cook until the meat was done. Tom Buddha was green corn and fresh meat cooked together and seasoned with tongue or pepper grass. We cooked on the fireplace with the pots hanging over the fire on racks, and then we baked bread and cakes in an oven skillet. We didn't use soda and baking powder. We would put salt in the meal and scald it with boiling water and make it into pones and bake it. We would roll the ash cakes in wet cabbage leaves and put 'em in the hot ashes and bake 'em. We cooked potatoes and roasted ears that way also. We sweetened our cakes with molasses, and they was plenty sweet too. There was lots of possums and coons and squirrels, and we nearly always had some of these to eat. We would parboil the possum or coon and put it in a pan and bake him with potatoes round him. We used a broth to baste him and for gravy. It sure was fine eating them days. I never had much work to do. I helped round the house when I wanted to, and I run errands for Miss Betsy. I liked to do things for her. When I got a little bigger, my brother and I toted cool water to the field for the hands. And didn't none of Master Holmes's niggers work when they was sick. He always saw that they had medicine and a doctor if they needed one. About the only sickness we had was chills and fever. In the old days, we made lots of our own medicine, and I still do it yet. We used polecat grease for croup and rheumatism, dog fennel, butterfly root, and life everlasting, boiled and mixed and made into a syrup will cure pneumonia and pleurisy. Parsley weed, called squirrel physic, boiled into a syrup will cure chills and fever. Snake root steeped for a long time and mixed with whiskey will cure chills and fever also. Our clothes were all made of homespun. The women did all the spinning and the weaving. But Miss Betsy cut out all the clothes and helped with the sewing. She learned to sew when she was away at school, and she taught all her women to sew. She did all the sewing for the children. Master Holmes bought our shoes, and we all had 'em to wear in the winter. We all went barefoot in the summer. He kept mighty good teams, and he had 2 fine saddle horses. He and Miss Betsy rode 'em all the time. She would ride with him all over the farm, and they would go hunting a lot, too. She could shoot a gun as good as any man. Master Holmes sure did love his wife and children, and he was so proud of her. It nearly killed 'em both to give up the little boy and girl. I never did hear of him taking a drink, and he was kind to everybody, both black and white, and everybody liked him. They had lots of company, and they never turned anybody away. We lived about 4 miles from the ferry on Red River on the Texas Road, and lots of travelers stopped at our house. We was allowed to visit the colored folks on the Eastman and Carter plantations that joined our farm. Eastman and Carter was both white men that married Indian wives. They was good to day slaves, too, and let 'em visit us. Old Uncle Caleb Colbert, Uncle Billy Hogan, Reverend John Carr, Reverend Baker, Reverend Hogue, and old Father Murrow preached for the white folks all the time, and us colored folks went to church with them. They had church under brush arbors, and we set off to ourselves, but we could take part in the singing. And sometimes a colored person would get happy and pray and shout, but nobody didn't think nothing about that. The patrollers was the law, kind of like the policemen now. They sure never did whip one of Master Holmes' niggers, for he didn't allow it. He didn't whip 'em himself, and he sure didn't allow anybody else to either. I was afraid of the Ku Kluxers too, and I specs that Master Holmes was one of the leaders if the truth was known. They sure was scary looking. I was scared of the Yankee soldiers. They come by and killed some of our cattle for beef, and took our meat and lard out in the smokehouse, and they took some corn too. Us niggers was awful mad. We didn't know anything about them fighting to free us. We didn't specially want to be free, that I knows of. Right after the war, I went over to Bloomfield Academy to take care of a little girl, but I went back to Master Holmes and Miss Betsy at the end of 2 years to take care of the little girl that was born to them, and I stayed with her until I was about 15. Master Holmes went to Washington as a delegate for something for the Indians, and he took sick and died, and they buried him there. Poor Miss Betsy nearly grieved herself to death. She stayed on at the farm till her little girl was grown and married. Her nigger men stayed on with 'em and rented land from her, and they sure raised a sight of truck. Didn't none of her old slaves ever move very far from her, and most of 'em worked for her till they was too old to work. I left Miss Betsy pretty soon after Master Holmes died and went back to the academy and stayed 3 years. I married a man that belonged to Master Holmes' cousin. His name was Colbert, too. I had a big wedding. Miss Betsy and a lot of white folks come and stayed for dinner. We danced all evening, and after supper we started again and danced all night, and the next day and the next night. We'd eat a while, then we'd dance a while. My husband and I had 9 children, and now I've got 7 grandchildren. My husband has been dead a long time. My sister Cheney lives here close to me, but her mind has got feeble, and she can't recollect as much as I can. I live with my son, and he is mighty good to me. I know I ain't long for this world, but I don't mind, for I has lived a long time, and I'll have a lot of friends in the other world, and I won't be lonesome.